Welcome to episode 48 of the Mile 20 podcast where epic shit happens. My name is Lori and I'm here with my bestie.
Laura. Hello.
We're coming to you over Zoom because Laura can't be with us today, but we are going to be discussing a really cool trip that we took. It was in
Ah,
conjunction with the Jackson Hole Marathon, which we discussed several episodes ago. We decided to make that trip a twofer, and we were out there for almost a week in Jackson Hole, and we hiked the Teton Crest Trail, which is in Grand Teton National Park.
oh my gosh. And this was like a dream trip, absolute dream trip. I could still like I can't remember sometimes what I did a week ago, but dude, I can remember every single detail of this trip. It's amazing.
I I know it's really crazy. And we did this back in 2020, it was September of 2020. So it was like funky COVID stuff still going on and a lot of should we, shouldn't we's. And I don't think that the lottery system or whatever it is for the trails was as competitive as it is now because I found
Correct.
it quite easy to get permits in the places where we camped. But it is a highly sought after trail now because it is so spectacular. I mean, so like I went through the pictures today and I'm like, where next? All it did was make me want to pack the bag and take off.
I know, I know. And the amazing thing that, as you're talking about how popular the trail is right now, I think on the first day we only saw like one group of people, a bunch of guys with a tent that was like way far off in like a tree line. And that
Yeah.
was that was about it. Like once we hit the trail and our husbands all left us. But the second day had a little bit more people where there was more like day walking, day hiking. But I mean, when we were in the thick of it and not by like I would say like the day access trails, I mean, you didn't see anybody.
No.
It was just me, you, and Tina, our friend Tina Valella,
Yes.
who
Who may be able to join us later. We're fingers crossing because
fingers
everything.
crossed that we can integrate her into our conversation here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
all of our schedules got really wonky this evening because we're recording on a Tuesday evening over Zoom, and obviously Laura and I are not in the same location today.
Yes, I am in Orlando, Florida at a work event. So I expire here in a little bit. So we'll go and get into the conversation. But I'm super excited to talk about this one. And I think that the last conversation of our last episode that we had with Melissa, who talked about just her lust for adventure trips and hiking and so forth. And I think that the one thing that she really made clear to like us and our listeners is that you can be just a regular Joe or Jane, and be able to go and do these adventure trips. You don't have to be, some triathlete or an Olympian to go and tackle these, or it is attainable. You just have to
Yeah.
do a little bit of research, talk to people, or get with an outfitter company like Melissa had suggested, and you could be on your way and experience something kind of similar to what Lori and I are just going to go through here in a couple minutes.
It's the magic. I don't think so. I come from a mom who is like not outdoorsy at all. Like doesn't even want to take a short walk in the woods even if there's a road and the cars nearby, like zero interest, woods outside, nothing. My dad's a little bit more outdoorsy, but I feel like for people who aren't outdoorsy, I don't think you understand that fundamentally we're meant to be connected to nature because we're part of it.
Hmm.
I feel like, in today's society, and this is going to sound really she tree hugger-ish, but it's true. We're so far removed from our environment because we lived in our own controlled boxes and all of that, that you don't understand the pace of your life, the clarity that you get when you strip everything down to its foundations and your basic needs for like a few days and be away and in nature and in the quiet and in your brain. And it's just, it's the most, I can't even recommend it. It's the healthiest thing that you can do for your mental health,
I agree.
period.
I totally agree. I totally
You
agree.
you can
And
run marathons, you can do crazy shit, but woods, mm-mm.
yeah, and there's a complete sense of accomplishment that, when you spend like we did for this particular trip, when you're out in the wilderness for 4 days and you have to supply, on your back all of the food, all of the gear that you need, anything and everything that you need, to be comfortable, right? And you define your own sense of comfort because I think we'll run through and each of us brought a couple of different things right along the
Yeah,
way. But there's just a sense of accomplishment that I fed myself. I got water, I slept safely and dryly, and I had clean underwear every day, uh, there's just something to be said about, just going on an adventure, but also that sense of accomplishment that I did this.
yeah.
So, just to tack on, just exactly what you said in terms of like the mental health and connecting with nature and so forth. It's just, yeah, it just absolutely. And I think that's why, Lori, you and I, when we a couple of episodes ago, we described our experience at the Rehoboth Marathon, and we saw the thousands of geese that were migrating at one time. We appreciate, the awe and the wonder of nature.
Yeah.
And even when you're in it, but you're not like in it in the middle of the wilderness, like you're in the middle of a marshland running a marathon, you can still appreciate it. So I think that everybody's going to really enjoy some of the really, really cool things that we got to experience on this trip.
Hell, earlier this week, I was on my Peloton. I looked out my back door and there was a blue heron in the creek behind my house. And
That was
I
a
took,
cool video.
yeah, I took a video and I sent it to Laura. I'm like, look, because there's nature everywhere. It is so cool. But I feel like marathoning, backpacking has a spectrum too, right?
Hmm.
So like with
Yeah,
marathoning, like we always say we're the back of the pack. We want to enjoy the experience. For us, it's not about how fast we can do it and the awards we're going to get and all of that. So with backpacking, there's also a spectrum. Of course, the lighter the pack, the easier the hike and all of
hmm,
that. But there are people that are like ultra light. And so then they go minimalist, 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 and try and make yourself comfortable with the minimal amount of things, minimal amount of weight, all of that.
yeah,
There's also people who speed hike and they're looking to do it as fast as they can. But again, like our marathoning, our backpacking experience is kind of more on the experiential pace of things.
correct, correct.
Yes. So I just going into it, like when we were packing the night before. So Tina had backpacked before. Her and her family had sectioned part of the Appalachian Trail, like probably I think two or three
Yeah.
times prior to us doing this. So she was our experience on this whole thing. I had taken a little backpack with Maggie. We had done a 30-mile trek here in PA just to kind of do a shakeout and see how all the equipment worked and all of that. So I had a minimal amount of experience. And then you have your military experience.
Yeah, but this was my first time using like all civilian gear, so I basically had nothing, when it came to backpacking. I mean, anything that I had used when I was in the army was all of my army gear. So this was, an entirely different beast, and just prepping for it. I did not rent equipment. You have your own equipment. Tina has her own equipment, and I know that like when you found something cool that worked, or Tina was sending us tips, and we were reading blogs, and I just anything and everything. You just standing in REI, like what would I need? Like what do I have to have? Because you make that decision right after you like bring everything out with you, because we brought everything out with us. To Jackson Hole. And as you were saying the night before, we're laying out all of our stuff. And then it's just like do I really need this? Like, do I really want to hump this on my back for 4 days? Now, you made a decision, and this is where I think we were unique, in terms of like what you brought, what I didn't bring. You decided to bring a camp chair with you.
Yes.
And that I definitely invested in after the Teton Trail. So I had one when we did like the White Mountains in New Hampshire, because I found that, after a while, you want to sit on a chair at night in like your campsite or even like during lunchtime, easy
Yeah.
access out of your pack and, having something to kind of give your back a rest. You're not sitting on, a rock and whatnot. So that was one of my lessons, that you had the chair, in the Tetons, but I did not.
One of my lessons was I think so I had bought oh mother, there's my 50-year-old brain, the Sawyer Squeeze,
Yes, yes.
as my water filter, which I love. I still use to this day. I like my Sawyer Squeeze. However, what I did not have is that Tina had that huge, like a big Nalgene plastic bag that you can collect water with. So it's really for dirty water to pour into to then filter. I bought that as soon as I got home, and that
Ditto,
thing has been
ditto.
on every backpacking trip I've taken
Yep,
since.
yep.
I love that thing. It's awesome,
Yeah,
especially if you're camping like up on a ridge and they don't have water usually when you're up high anywhere. I usually load that thing up and I heft all that water up the hill, and it's a pain in the
yeah,
ass, but
yeah,
worth
because
it.
the Sawyer bag was a little bit more difficult to go and collect the water in because it didn't have a really wide mouth. Now,
Yeah.
now my problem with water on the trip is that I chose a very very light frameless backpack. It has had ribbing in it, but not like a big frame like the Ospreys have. And I'm not remembering offhand what the brand is, but we'll post some stuff, post the podcast. But the problem with that is that I did not have, if you remember, an easy access, to hold my water bottle.
Yes, I
So
do remember.
so every time, literally, y'all, every time I freaking stopped to get water, I was like, Lori, can you get my water bottle out of my bag? It was the most pitiful excuse for my hydration plan. And so that was corrected. I got rid of the light pack and I got a new pack and now I totally have like camelback or just some easy access water. So it was a one and done lesson. But
Yeah.
it was a long lesson because it was like 4 days of that. So yeah.
Well, no, it was
You're
only
such a
really
good
when we were
friend.
climbing. It was only when we were climbing that it became an issue. Usually we were fine, but the minute we started on the inclines going anywhere, it was like, Lori, I'm like, I'll stop.
Like I need my water. I need my water. So we went before we started the trail and packed all of our stuff up the night before. You and I when we went to the national park station to pick up our passes, we went and participated in a safety video, a safety briefing. And I think the most important thing, and we'll tell the story, here in a little bit, but what you do when you hit inclement weather, within the mountains, because mountain weather, and especially in this particular mountain range, the weather can turn on a dime,
Yeah.
and you have to know what to do because you could die.
Yeah.
Let's just put it out there. You could die. And we wanted to come home alive because then after this we had a marathon to run.
Yeah.
So
Which we had to check off that marathon off of our 50 states list,
yes, yes, yes. So it was very, very important that we participated in the safety video. Now, Tina and her husband Matt arrived late, to Jackson Hole, so she did not participate in the safety video. And we didn't relay the safety information to her as well. I think we both assumed that because she had been backpacking before, like she was kind of in the know.
Yeah.
And then we learned later on that she wasn't. So
Yes.
we'll tell that story, in a little bit.
Now,
But
but when we were also there, don't they have also bear canisters for
yes,
rent there?
yes, yes, because I
So
rented mine.
Yeah, so bear canisters for Teton National Park are required. You cannot bear hang. There are myriad of places where there are just not enough trees, and the bears are super savvy there. So
And a
a
bear
bear
hang, yeah,
canister.
and so for those who don't know, a bear hang is when you take a bag and you basically, throw a rope up over, a branch, and you secure the rope around the tree, but you have your bag, high up, in a tree, so supposedly the bears won't get at it, but they get at it.
Yeah. But they there's not enough sometimes trees in the different places where you can camp. So they highly recommend, well, they require a bear canister. And
Correct.
bear canisters are designed so that they really can't grab with their claws to pry anything open, and they're strong enough that they can't like crack it with their teeth and big enough. But it's interesting to try and fit 4 days of food in a canister.
And not just your food, but anything that has a scent. So if
Yeah.
you have deodorant, if you have gum, candy, toothpaste, anything that has a scent to it needs to go into the bear canister, because the animals will be attracted to any kind of unusual smell that does not occur naturally in nature.
Yes.
And then when we hit our campsites and we would pitch our tents, we would determine a location, like not next to the tent, not in the tent, but our canisters would actually be, let's call it 25, 50 yards away from our tents. So that way, if a bear or animal did get at it, it wasn't close to the tent. The key thing too is that where you put your bear canisters, don't put it in a location where it's like if an animal touches it, it could roll downhill. That did not
Yeah.
happen to us, but that is a really, really important thing, because I think, Lori, you had one night your canister was moved in the morning, but it
Yes.
wasn't, but nothing was like messed with it. But we definitely know an animal, was trying to have at it.
Yeah, something. So like we found like fallen down logs or like a little groove in rocks, and we would set
Hmm.
it down in a depression in the ground that looked like it was kind of sturdy and protected. So for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So we started so 4 days we did out there. The original plan was that we were going to take the aerial tramway to the South Fork Trail on the south side of the Teton Crest Trail and hike northbound. We're all getting ready the night before, and Tina's like, "Oh, the tramway's closed." And I was like, "Huh? What?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I read all the all trail reviews. They were talking about how the tramway's closed." And I'm like, "Uh." So we had to
Lesson
make a
learned. Lesson
lesson
learned.
learned.
You you
Yep.
you you read all of the most recent reviews, and just what's happening on a trail before you hit it.
Yes, and another sidebar, something else I have learned since this trip, almost every single backpacking trail, long trail, has a Facebook page group dedicated to information about that particular trail. So if you're looking at wanting to hike a particular trail, join the Facebook page so that you can follow what's happening. And sometimes they even provide resources because there's like been local ones nearby where I found that you could pick up people to pick you up at the end of a trail and drive you back to your car, even though there may not be like an official tram service, which sounds very dangerous and probably could have been, but luckily they were good people. I wouldn't say I did it, but I absolutely did. Um, but like there's just some really good Facebook groups out there, and a lot of times they're also participating in the trail maintenance. So there's really good information there when it comes to all of that. So join the face group page too for whatever trail you're looking at.
That is a great tip. So as a result, we ended up having to kind of change where we started. So we ended up going to the Granite Canyon trailhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so the
It
difference
was
that it
pretty.
made, it was pretty and it wasn't, I think that the tramway, takes you up to the ridge line. So we added elevation and
We
some
definitely did.
mileage.
We definitely did. But if we had taken the tram, we might not have seen the moose. that we
Yeah.
saw along the trail there. And our husbands, I don't know, they might have like gone on the trail maybe like a mile in or so with us. And then, we said our goodbyes and then they went on their way and did their boy frolicking things and we continued hiking, the three of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the first part of that was, some really pretty woods and the trails are very, very well groomed in that area. Because there's a lot of day hikers, right, as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, but then you start hitting the elevation, and it like the ground just starts changing. The environment around you starts changing. You start losing, some trees. Becomes a little less, wooded, and then it gets like rocky and then arid, and it was so wild. It was just I don't know. The one crazy thing that we saw a lot on the trail was animal scat, or for those of you who don't know what scat is, it's a nice way of calling it poop.
Yes.
So a lot of what we probably thought were either fox or coyote, along the way, because it looked like dog size.
Yeah. We saw that more day two, but on day one, it looked like we did about 12 miles that day. We started at Granite Canyon Trailhead and we had permits to camp out on the Death Canyon shelf. Because we had to hike up to the ridge line, it was 3,600 feet in elevation gain for that day.
Yeah.
So it was quite a bit that day. But it didn't feel bad. I felt like it
Yeah,
felt manageable that
it
day.
it did feel manageable that day, and I think it could probably be attributed to the fact that like we were just so excited to like finally be in it because I mean we had been planning the trip for so many months,
Yeah,
and then just to be in it and I don't know, like the first day there was just so much to see, in terms of scenery and so forth. I don't know. I the first day didn't feel like a trudge to me at all.
it didn't, not at all. And it's so you follow the Granite Canyon Trail, and it meets this remote kind of mountain lake called Marion Lake, which
It's pretty.
it was gorgeous. And then you finally hook up with the Teton Crest Trail there. And I feel like probably not my favorite day. It was cool because it was our first day out
Yeah.
there. I liked the Death Canyon shelf because I thought that the view was really cool
The view
because
was spectacular because it was literally like boulders with a shelf that then overlooked like the river valley. It
yeah,
was incredible. Yeah.
it was. Although I think you were a little afraid of rolling out of the tent and plummeting to your death at night.
I was. I will be honest with you. I was a little fearful. Now, I would say that before we got to our campsite and pitched our tents, the signage was very, very well marked. So
Oh
we
yeah.
did not have any issues like, oh shit, like is this the trail? And not only that, but you also, and I'm not sure if Tina had the trail downloaded as well, on All Trails. So that's super important to download your trails before you start hitting them, especially because, once you're out in the wilderness, like you're not going to have any kind of like Wi-Fi or cell service. So it's super important to be able to go and have those trails for the access.
Yeah, and in addition to the All Trails download, I prior to us leaving and before Maggie and I hiked locally, I had bought one of the little Garmin
Mm,
InReaches, which is you do have to pay for a monthly satellite service for the device. However, it is an satellite emergency beacon if there's any problems. You can also send text messages out, so
yes.
all of our husbands there was a couple of things. We were able to send them text messages. So in the morning, we sent them like leaving camp in the morning. And
Hmm.
at night, we're like making camp for the night. And then they were able to also track us on a map through Garmin. Every time we sent the text, they could see where we were, what
Right.
we had hiked, and how long it took, and all of that, which was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was an extra I don't know, just sense of safety and
Yeah.
well-being that if something did happen, at least they had kind of a proximity of where we were. Now the way that we camped, so Tina carried a single person tent with her and we had a double tent. So I think we used your tent, right? You had the
Yeah.
double tent. And so, and that worked out really well. I mean, Tina didn't have to carry, too big of a tent. We were going to swap, like around and like who was doing the doubles, who was doing the singles. And we just ended up that Tina's like, I'm cool, like just sleeping in the single the whole, time. So Lori and I ended up in the tent together, and Tina, was in the one. Now, the one thing I do remember from that night was hearing the coyotes. And,
Yeah, it was so
it's
cool.
it was really cool, but it's definitely different when you're in a tent versus like, when you're in a cabin and you're sitting on a back porch and you can hear the coyotes, right? It's another thing when you're like, I'm in a tent. And what was happening with the tent? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think I got lazy and I didn't fully stake out one of the vestibules properly and it got a little windy at night and started whipping around. And so, occasionally you'd start to fall asleep at night and then you'd wake up thinking that something was trying to crawl in the tent. You
Yeah.
lesson learned. We staked
Y-
it out the rest of the rest of
Yes, it
the
was
trip.
the rest of the trip. And I that whether it was that night or the next morning, I completely my reading glasses. Now, for those of you who do not know, I cannot read anything. I can't read a map, can't read my phone. I cannot even look at pictures without my glasses. My eyesight is pretty bad. And I lost my glasses. So I was like, okay, girls, I'm at your mercy now. So the lesson learned there was one, when you're out backpacking, do not bring your like $1,000 like glasses because I do have to get special glasses. I don't go down to I can't go down to like the local pharmacy and just pick up some readers. And then bring and like just either an old pair or get a pair of readers that I can just kind of like just keep in my bag and not fret over if I lose them, because that was devastating. I was like, they were like practically brand new glasses and poof, just gone.
They were somewhere left on the Death Canyon
Yeah. So if
shelf.
anybody is on the trail and they find a pair of tortoise shell glasses, they're really cute. Like, just
Back from
give me a call.
2020, they may not be
Yep.
cute
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. They might not be cute anymore, but just give me a call. Give me a call. I'll keep the frames. So yeah. Yeah, that sucked. Um, but yeah, and the way that we approached getting into camp, first thing we would do is we'd set up our tents, get our sleeping bags out, get everything all situated. And then we would actually sit down and cook our meals, put our bear canisters away, clean ourselves up, and then hit the hay.
One of my favorite luxury items that I pack aside. So I am a heavy packer, by the way. Like the whole ultra light thing, I'm like, it makes me more badass to actually carry all this shit, right? So I like my luxuries. So I like my chair, which I did not regret for a single day of the 4 days we were there. I used it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I
On
enjoyed
breaks,
sitting.
like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I picked it out, whatever. But at dinner time, one of my favorite luxury items is to pack a nip. And I found these things called craft mix, which I happen to have some on to
Oh,
me
yes.
right now.
Yes, if you're
They
seeing us on YouTube.
Yes, so they come in a variety of flavors. But they're really cool. You can find them on Amazon. They have like mango margarita, strawberry mule,
Again, they're
passion
called
fruit.
craft mix.
Craft mix. They're on Amazon. So basically, all you need is just the water that you filter that you get, a little nip, and then these little powdered things that you mix up in it, and you have a little cocktail at the end of the night. It's
And
one
we
of my
loved
favorite
having the
things.
cocktails at the end of the night. That was enjoyable, after having dinner and just kind of sitting around. And now the one thing we could not do while we were in the Tetons was you cannot go and light a fire at
No.
all. So there was no, oh, let's go and light a little bonfire, keep warm and so forth. There was absolutely none of that. And it got chilly. I mean, because we're
Yeah.
talking the September time period. So it got chilly at night.
Yeah.
And, we had sleeping bags that were, sub, I think 30-degree, sleeping bags between the three of us. So we were fine, sleeping at night. But, when you were sitting out there, you got your little liquid coat with, with a nip, a cocktail. And then it was like, yep, I'm going to bed because,
Yeah.
it's just really cold sitting outside.
Yeah, I definitely remember it being more cold the second night.
Yes,
So day two, we went from Death Canyon Shelf where we camped to South Fork Cascade camping area, which was almost 12,000 miles and about 2,000 feet, a little shy of 2,000 feet in elevation gain. And this day, I can remember when we picked up our permits, the lady was like, I just have to do this disclosure. On day two, you are scheduled to do two mountain passes, and we do not recommend you doing two mountain passes in a day. And I had already read that this was like a standard itinerary. I'm like, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And you know what? It was
we were fine.
fine.
Yeah, we were
Yeah,
fine.
it was not a big deal doing those two mountain passes. But if anybody decides to do the same itinerary, just so you know, when you go to pick up your permits, they're going to try and talk you out of it. It's fine. It really is. It was not, again, not the hardest day on the trail. At least not, I didn't find it to be Did you think it was the hardest day on trail?
Was this the day where we hit the lake? No, yeah,
No.
no. That was the third day.
This was
Um,
the day we did so the day two takes you over Mount Meek Pass. Then you hike through the Alaska Basin, where really you're
that's right.
looking at Wyoming and Idaho at the same time.
That's right.
And then you climb over Hurricane Pass.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that like Mount Meek Pass was like cool, but not a big deal. The Alaska Basin was kind of a mental fuck because you could see the trail for
For
miles.
miles, and it was very arid.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that is that there was snow. In like it was spotty snow, and Tina was all excited because Tina lives in Florida, and she was all excited because she got to go and see some of the snow. Now, the one thing I remember, and I think this is even before we got over Meek Pass, is after we broke camp in the morning, we saw a family of eagles.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, there were four of
Yes.
them, and I mean, we stopped. At some point in time, like one of us was like, okay, we got to go because like we can't keep like, sitting here for like hours watching these things. But there were two baby eagles, and they were, with, we would assume, their parents, and they were just soaring in and out of the wind and the pass. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It was that.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I forgot about that
Yeah,
because it
that day,
really was
that's
so
what I
cool.
really remember about that day. And then the snow,
Yeah.
just seeing the snow, that was fun,
I also remember seeing like this was a heavy coyote fox scat
Yes,
day. And we're
yes,
like, oh, this is where they must have been hanging around. And we were hearing them all night long on the Death
yes,
Canyon shelf,
yes.
all night. I can remember Hurricane Pass feeling like a little bit of a challenge, but
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that because we kind of got warned by the National Park Service about the two, it felt like a hell of an accomplishment when we finally did get over Hurricane Pass.
Yeah, and I know that, we were a little nervous about like, getting into camp with the sun setting,
Yeah.
so again, like you have to be very, very aware, especially what time of the year you're hiking, what time sunrise is, what time sunset is, what side of the mountain you are going to be on, because even if the sun is setting at a certain time, if you're on the wrong side of the mountain, you're going to lose that sun like faster, right,
Yeah.
than the other side. Now, I loved the pictures that we took at the top of Hurricane Pass because we did the, kissing the Grand Teton. So like literally, like we were on, when you look at iconic pictures of the Tetons, right, you're from the road looking at the Tetons. We were on the back side of that shit. So
Right.
anytime we're by the Tetons, I was like, I was on the back side of that shit. I say that every single time Jim's like rolls his eyes. He's like, oh, babe, like I was on the back side of that shit.
See, I was a little dirtier because I was like, I want to see what's under the skirt.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah. No, it just,
crazy.
that was, out of, all of the accomplishments, for me personally, getting up to that point in the trail and just being behind the Grand Teton was like, oh. So once we got up to the hurricane pass, then it was cool because then we kind of came down and there was like, was it like there was a glacier, like a remnant of a glacier. As we were coming down, it was like kind of like in like in the pass there. But it was cool because we did see what was it? A
Oh
marmot.
yeah, yellow-bellied marmot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. And it had like a bunch of straw hanging out of its mouth and
Yep.
probably building, some kind of nest for the winter time. So that was cool. We stopped and watched that for a little while. But that was a pretty campsite that second night coming down. We had a nice little bubbling, stream. There was a big river, right? That
Yeah.
we hiked by, but where we camped, there was a nice stream. So had good access to water and so forth. But I thought it was really cool because that night you decided, even though it was colder out, you were like, oh my God, the stars are spectacular. We'd
Oh
eaten
yeah.
dinner and you had your chair. And I think you had like a nice warm belly from like your food and your nip and stuff. And you were like, I'm just going to sit out here and look at the stars. And part of me was like a little mental because I'm just like, but you shouldn't be out there because there are bears.
Right. Yeah.
But you were
Yeah.
then I remember you going, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
And both Tina and I freaking shoot up because we're both laying in our sleeping bags. We're like,
Right.
what?
I know. I was sitting there and I'm like, y'all, this is just spectacular. And because I'm like, I can't go to bed right now. This is too cool. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. And I really did love that campsite
Yeah.
because I like all the water features. I kept going like,
And you could hear
Dave,
it.
can we do
Yeah.
this in the backyard? Is it like
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
every time,
Yeah. We
Dave, I
kept
want
taking a
this in the
picture of it.
backyard.
It's like, Dave,
Yeah.
it's just a little stream.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just want this in the backyard.
Little
But
stream.
as I was sitting there and I'm like chilling and looking at the stars, I start to see lights on the Grand Teton, like headlamps. And I'm like,
A lot
what?
of them.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, holy shit. There must have been either a guided group or just a group that decided to go up there. I don't know. I've never looked into it. But there was an entire group of people that you could see coming through one of the passes on the backside of the Teton, and you could watch them climbing. And I'm assuming that they were finishing that night so that they could camp out and watch the sunrise from the summit in the morning. And I was like, oh God, that would be so cool, but no way in hell would I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
was
But
fun to sit there.
you could admire and watch. But we did, both Tina and I were like, what is going on? And I unzipped the tent. I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I'm not coming out there. It was so cold that night. And I would, and when you do sleep at night, at least this is what I do. I think you do the same thing. I
Yeah.
try to strip down to as many like minimal layers as possible. So I usually have just like a light long sleeve shirt on and maybe like a light pair of tights or even like just my underwear if I can tolerate it. Because and then I keep my clothes in my sleeping bag. So that way then in the morning, my clothes when I put them on are warm, but I'm not overheating like either while
Yeah.
I'm sleeping. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. The
yeah,
clothes in the bottom of the sleeping bag is clutch in the morning when it's chilly,
it
for
is.
sure.
It
Yeah.
definitely is. But it does make for the need to air out your sleeping bag when you get back from camping very, very important.
Oh, I wash my sleeping bag every time
Well,
because
yeah, I
I'm
mean, but it's
by
just
day
it.
4, I'm gnarly as hell.
I know. I know.
I wear so
I
and
know. I slept in the same tent as you and I was gnarly as well. So, it is
well,
what it is. It is
and
what it
here's
is.
another one of my luxury items that people probably think I'm crazy for. I pack deodorant. I
I do
also
too.
pack cleaning wipes, which we do practice leave no trace.
Correct.
Look that up. It is a known thing in the backcountry. You leave no trace. So like I
No
use baby
tissues, no
wipes,
napkins, no anything
nothing.
left. If you wipe, you put it in a bag, a special bag, and you keep it in your backpack, and then you very quickly throw it away as soon as you get to the end of the trail.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
love my I do a baby wipe bath at the end of
Uh-huh.
every day to try
I
and
do
at
the
least
same
get
thing.
some of the sweat off because
Yeah.
you know, I'm too old to be that dirty. I don't need to
Yeah.
be that dirty.
I know that when I brought my baby wipes, I got ones that were unscented.
Yeah.
So very, very, just trying to minimize, any kind of curious animals that that might ponder because there are black bears and there are grizzlies
Yes.
in the Tetons. So,
Yeah.
so we had complete awareness of that throughout the trip. And, as we were hiking, and especially in areas where it became a little bit more wooded, we didn't have line of sight. So I did appreciate, though, going over Hurricane Pass, because dude, you could see for miles. And it was like if there was an animal coming, man, you could see it, right?
Yeah.
But we each had like our own things. Like Tina would go and sing the Smurf song, la 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 la.
Yes.
I think I did suey, like a suey, like for pigs. I can't remember what you did.
I would just go whoop,
Yep,
whoop
that's right. That's right.
as we walked.
Just constantly making, noises, so that way, hopefully the bears would be frightened by them and go on their merry way. And we all carried bear spray with us as well. So that was a
Yep.
must. So,
Yep.
yep.
So day three, this takes us now to day three. We go from South Fork Cascade to Holly Lake. It's about 14.2 miles, give
Hmm.
or take, and almost 3,100 feet of elevation. Probably one of my favorite sections of the
I
trail.
agree. I agree. That was
Um,
my favorite day. My favorite day, but scariest day.
Hardest day. To me,
Hardest
that was
day.
also the hardest day.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Um,
And T like Tina, like when it comes to like the three of us, Tina is like at the time, like she was just like the beast when it came to hiking. I mean, she had hiking legs. She could go and move on the trail. You
well,
were like,
she's also our fast runner friend.
well, absolutely,
Like she
absolutely.
qualifies for Boston and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah.
she's a badass.
And you were in the middle of the road, and then I was in the back of the pack, and I was like, I'm coming. I was in the
Yeah.
back the entire time. I was like, I'll be bear bait. I'm okay.
Hey, any one of us could be bear bait at
I
any
know,
time.
I know, I know, I know.
But
All
this
joking
was
aside.
But this was a beautiful day. I feel like it was like a little bit more woodsy. You had even more water features. Like Alaska Basin was pretty because you got to see all the back of the big Tetons.
And the
Here,
reflection on the lake and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, this felt just like a lot more woodsy and it was just beautiful.
Now a lot more people though. So
Well, that
yeah.
was once we hit the
Lake
granite.
Solitude, right?
Well, there's a trail that comes in. Shit, what's it called?
Yeah.
Granite Run, Cascade. What the hell is it? I made a note somewhere. Oh, the Cascade Canyon Trail
Yes.
comes in. So I had
Hmm.
hiked actually that a few years before
Yes, I
my
remember you saying
family.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, part of it. So when that trail connects with the Teton Crest Trail all the way from there to Lake Solitude, it gets way, way crazy with day hikers. And it was kind of a little bit like, what the fuck at that point, because we were enjoying our solitude.
Yes, yes, yes. And a lot of people going up there to take Instagram pictures and so forth. But I did enjoy our lunch, sitting on the big boulders, and I think everybody was kind of respectful of each other's quiet space.
Yeah.
While like I didn't feel like there were any obnoxious people, it was like I came in like, I can't even get a quiet moment while we were on
Well,
that lake.
I think Lake Solitude from the Granite Canyon, Cascade Canyon trailhead is like 12 miles
Yeah.
round trip. So it's like a bigger, chunkier hike.
Yeah.
So really you're getting people that are into that sort of
Yep.
thing. So I think it kind of
Absolutely.
filters out some of the flip-flop crowd.
Now, the one intimidating thing that we saw when we were sitting eating lunch is because we were like, all right, where do we pick back up the trail, right? And you could actually see along the mountain little tiny specks going doot 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 up the hill, up the mountain. And I was like, fuck, dude, like that's where we're going.
Yes, it is.
And now the cool thing about that is that, I mean, that took a really that I felt was one of the harder like portions of the trail for me personally. But the
Agreed.
cool thing is that I kept stopping and turning around and looking at Lake Solitude because, it just kept getting smaller and smaller. And then at some point in time, it looked like a little teeny tiny dot. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I was down there. Like
Yeah.
I was down there and now I'm up here, but I was down there.
Yeah.
And it was such a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like the crushing of the crushing, the climbing of the paintbrush divide was definitely probably the most challenging part of the trail. But we did forget one notable thing about the section before we got to Lake Solitude.
Yeah.
We had a really cool fox encounter, if you remember.
Yep. It was
We were,
huge.
yeah, we were in like just, we were just hanging out on the trail. I think he had come trucking down the trail. But again, like Tina was in front of us, and then it was me, and then it was you. And I think there was another couple in front of Tina. And so he was bypassing the trail. But I mean, he got within like 3 or 4 feet of both of us. And I have the gorgeous video of him running by. It was so cool.
Yeah.
I
No,
love that.
it was beautiful. Beautiful animal.
But yeah, so Paintbrush Pass, that ain't no joke. One of my favorite moments on climbing Paintbrush Pass with you was I can remember. So we set up, so again, just like with running marathons, I carried a speaker, the little speaker. We were I would pause it the minute we saw anybody coming, and we didn't play it in the mornings. It was just when we really needed to kind of have a mental something to focus on. So we climbing Paintbrush Pass. It was after lunch. We were all kind of tired. We knew we had a big challenge in front of us, so I kicked on a little bit of music. And so I created a playlist and everybody put some songs on. I can remember thinking Stevie Nicks Landslide. Is that really like a backpacky vibe?
I
I
know because
don't know.
I added that one and you were
Yeah,
like,
you did.
but you kept it on there.
We did. And then we hiking, and then we reached this place where it's like a boulder field that we're hiking, perpendicular through. And we
And it
felt
sounded
very,
hollow. It sounded
yeah.
hollow when you walked on the rocks because you're like, oh shit, is there like some cavern that underneath that I'm going to, fall into? And then the song Landslide comes on.
And I just giggled. I just laughed my ass off at you. I was like, and now I love that song, and it belongs on every hiking playlist.
Right? Right? It's just
Landslide just absolutely works 100% every time, all the time.
I got you, girl. I got you. Yeah. No, that was really spectacular. And then before I think that most frustrating thing with that part of the trail is that every time you kind of came up to a point and you thought you hit the summit, it was like psych,
Yeah.
and it just and then you kept going up more and more. So, while there were, a lot of I would say steep areas, then you'd have a switchback. And it was just very deceiving to know like where the upper crest of the trail was. Now the cool thing is we did go and see was it a sheep? Sheep
Well, mountain goat,
a
billy
mountain
goat.
goat, a goat.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
of those white goats with the
Yeah, the
big
horned
beards.
ones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was really cool, and it was amazing. It was it was kind of like on the edge of the trail, and then we watched it, and it just kind of like traversed the rocks, and I was like, oh my God, how does it not fall? Like it was like on the edge of a cliff, and just kind of like doing its thing. So that was pretty cool to go and watch.
That was very cool. We did
Yeah.
see they're not natural to the Grand Tetons. They are trying to kind of get them out. They were introduced in the 1960s on the Snake River on the Idaho side of that range.
Hmm.
They've made their way into the park and been very prolific. And I guess they've been so prolific that the bighorn sheep population, which is native to that area, has started to plummet. So they have been actively trying to remove them. I think it may have been paused recently, so they're not quite doing as much, but I think there's only like 12 left in the park or something like that. But didn't we see a group
Yes.
that
Yep.
were actively hunting them at the time?
Yes, yes, we completely did, and we asked them, we're like, what do you do when you catch them? They actually kill them,
Yeah.
and they carry them out. So I just yeah, actually, a couple of them were talking about how they will actually go and like have some for dinner.
Yeah.
And I think it was that the goats carried some type of bacteria or some kind of parasite that actually was killing off the bighorn sheep, and that's the reason why they were going after them because they didn't want to lose the population of sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true too.
yeah.
So then finally get after what well actually before we get to the summit, a really cool place was when we actually got to the divide. So there was a time where we were probably on like a 10-foot strip
Hmm.
of like granite, and you could see the one side where Lake Solitude and the Grand Teton is, and then you could see the other side of Paintbrush Divide on the other side, and it was really cool. And that was right before we summited. I thought that that was like it's so amazing. And the views were spectacular.
That was spectacular. And at this altitude, so we're almost at 11,000 feet. There weren't any trees up where we were.
No,
We were totally above the tree line. So anything that we were seeing were like the top, like the rugged, stone tops of the mountains, which was just it was just mwah. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I was looking back at our summiting pictures and stuff. So Tina probably was up there for, I don't know, 45, 30 minutes
Yeah,
before
she
us
got up there
because
way before us.
yeah, we were taking pictures. We were happy. We were talking. We had a snack. We were drinking. Like yay, we did it. We didn't have that much further to go because we descended right to Holly Lake, and that's where we were camping. I was looking back at the sky. I was paying attention just to the sky in the photos and the videos, especially the videos, because I did like at least a 180 or 360 video looking around from that pass because
Yeah.
it was so gorgeous. And I'm like, well, any moron would have fucking seen that they needed to get the shit off that pass and down to the tree line ASAP if they knew how to read a sky, which I now know how to do and didn't know then.
Yes, yes, because what ensued was thunder and lightning as we're standing on granite rocks.
Yes. Well, so we were able to descend a bit. We started descending
Tina
and we,
started Tina started before us.
yeah, she started, she was
Yeah.
gone. We
Yeah,
never
she was like a
saw
little
her.
spider monkey, man, like climbing down the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. So we never saw her again until we were at camp at that point. And then, like, we're descending. I can remember at one point we kind of lost the trail and then found it again. You
Well,
found it again.
you remember like you lost your shoe? Like like
Yes.
you like put your foot in between rocks and you pulled your foot out and like your shoe. I just remember your shoe getting stuck between the
Yes, my
rocks.
shoe got stuck. And we like all of a sudden we heard thunder and that safety video was like right back in our
It was
heads
like
like
wee wee wee.
they're like if there's thunder, there's lightning, you're above tree line, you need to get to tree line as soon as possible, get rid of all metal, blah 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 blah.
As we're
And
carrying
so
like our metal poles or
you and
aluminum
I,
poles. Yeah.
yeah, we're like looking at each other and we're like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we start
Like
trail
like
running with our backpacks on.
yeah, and that was I would probably say there's maybe two or three times in my life I had that like fear of death. And that was one of them. And I can honestly say that no sooner, like you were running in front of me, I was behind you. No sooner did you take your foot out of a spot that my foot went right into your indentation that you just made. Like we were in such concert with each other. Like I could have totally taken you out. Like, like
Right.
if we didn't, but we did that. The scariest thing is that we had to traverse over a glacier that if you made, and we didn't have yak tracks on our
No.
on our boots, so we just had our normal boots. And normally, if you just went over it carefully, slowly, you can actually see the trail.
It's well packed, a little
It's well
slushy
packed,
and grippy. Yeah.
but because we were moving so rapidly, if we had made one mistake, we would have gone down like half of the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
So I was very, very happy by the time we got down to the tree line and we frantically like threw our packs off, we chucked our poles and
It started hailing immediately,
like
like as we were approaching. Yeah.
massive hailstones. And we tried to record. Remember, either I did or you did, right? We tried to record. I think I had it on mine. And then
No, it's on
was
mine,
it
I
on yours?
think.
And
Yeah.
then and then we couldn't even hear the audio because of the amount of electricity that was in the air, which was crazy. So we
Yeah.
probably should have put down our phones too.
Probably. Your eyes in that video
Yeah,
are
dude.
bigger than I've never seen them like that.
Yeah.
before or since.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll never see that ever again. So I was,
I
that
would
was
have seen
scary.
it if you came on the Kalalau Trail with me, but I did not,
Yes. Yes.
which
But
we'll get to that later.
that's why I did not go on that trail. So yeah, no, that was super scary. And then by the time we ended up getting down to Holly Lake, which was absolutely beautiful, right? And
Yeah.
in terms of, like it took us a little while to find our campsite, and then we couldn't find Tina. And
Yeah.
poor Tina had like overshot our campsite, and she ended up doing like a couple extra miles, right? Like to like do the
Yes.
loop back around to get to the campsite. I felt so bad for her. Like we were out of our minds. You and I double backed because there was a bigger campsite, with a bunch of younger people. Hey, did you see a woman? She's wearing X, Y, and Z. Like we're like shit. Like what do we do? And because again, we had no cell service, we had no way of going and keeping track of where she was. So that was to me also a lesson learned. It's like in that type of environment with, weather and so forth, like just not getting so far ahead, of your party. So that way, there's like a frantic kind of scenario.
There's also I have on my Christmas list for future down the road, walkie-talkies that you can buy that work
Oh, okay.
satellite,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
you can still communicate with each other, which I thought would have been cool.
Yeah,
So but she did come in. She
she
came
did.
in, she found us, and everything was fine. I just
Yep.
kept thinking about her husband, Matt. I'm like, he's gonna kill me if I lose a Tina.
Yes. We're not going to lose a Tina.
Can't lose Tina. And of course, Tina was like a Smurfette, which is what we called her all day on that trail or on the trail because she was like, la, la, la. She was like skipping and happy, thinking that the hill, it was like snow
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
just like plowing on while we were fearing for our lives at the tree
Yes.
line.
Yes. Yes. So Tina did not watch the safety video.
No, no, not at all.
But she lived to tell about it.
Yes. But the Holly Lake, I thought Holly Lake was a cool campsite. However, there is a campsite further down when we descended the next day that I thought maybe might have been a little better
I agree.
because it
I agree.
had really cool views because I didn't feel like we were on the lake.
No,
Like
we
we
were
were
not. We were tucked kind of tucked away, in like, yeah, definitely off the lake. Now I don't know, we walked just a little bit to go and eat our breakfast in the morning and had like, some views of the lake. The crazy thing is that with the storm that came in, it created like this wind event. And it was almost like where the lake is, it's almost like in a bowl,
yeah.
with the other, mountains around it. And so the wind you could hear the wind come into the bowl and just make its way. Like it sounded like a freight train, and then it would like kind of shake our tent and then go back around. I mean, the fact that like neither of our tents went and collapsed that night, because I remember you and I laying in the tent, and every time the wind would come back around, we were both like, like it was like a, oh, this is cool, but this is kind of scary too, like,
Yes.
so it
And I
definitely
felt like
was
that was like
interesting.
all
It was
night
all night.
long.
It was relentless, and it was bitter cold the next morning. Like the
Yeah.
pictures of the three of us having breakfast that next morning, I like that. So that was our fourth day, and I was like, okay, like I'm good. Like I'm good to go back today and get
Yeah.
into some nice warm jammies and have some
Red wine.
nice red wine and some good food. So, but
Yeah. So
yeah,
so day 4 was Holly Lake to String Lake Trailhead where we had scheduled to have the boys pick us up. It was a little less than 8 miles and it clocked in as a whopping 100 feet of elevation because we descended almost all day long.
yeah, yeah. And we definitely did. And I think that the thing that people need to also realize is that elevation can really mess with you.
Yeah.
You and I have done a lot of events with elevation, whether it be, races where there's been higher elevation, doing hikes like this. I know for me, like especially on this one, and I'll just share this with people. There was one day where every time I took a step, I farted. And it wasn't like I farted a little bit. It was like I was like I was giggling. I was like I. No smell, no anything. But my body had complete flatulence from dealing with
Altitudes.
the altitudes, right? I totally had the altitudes. Now you had a different issue as we came down off of the altitude. You had stomach woes,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. So that was it was a rough. I want to say it was a rough day for you because we had to make a couple of stops and we felt for you, but like there was nothing we could do because we knew what it was, right?
No,
It's
yeah.
altitude, you know?
And it was fine. It just sucked because, I was stopping so frequently and it was only 8 miles and it was a descent. So we thought we were kind of going to fly through that day, but
Yeah,
it wound
yeah.
up being a little slower than we thought. There was enough that made it so worth it and it was okay on the way down. On the way down, we saw a mama mule deer
Hmm.
with little babies, and oh my gosh, those babies are adorable.
And they're called mule deers because their ears are exceptionally huge, like a mule. But they're a deer.
And the
And
babies'
hence,
ears are so big.
yes, they were. And even though like we were hiking by them, they still they acknowledged us, but like we stayed away from them, they stayed away from us, and we definitely got a chance to to enjoy them. I do remember that day as well, finding along the trail because there was a lot of woods,
Yeah.
was some very, very fresh bear scat on the trail. And so, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm really, really happy that this is like the last day, but there could very well be bears, around. So, you have this like heightened sense of, just listening for branches breaking, something moving in the woods, and so forth. We did have, I would say, a negative experience. So we stopped for lunch, and at some point in time, when we were descending down the trail, there was this guy. He was by himself,
He
and he
kind
was
of
kind
came
of
out of the woods.
yeah, he was kind of sitting like over to the side. We noticed him. We were talking to some other people, and then we kind of continued on our way. And then we sat for lunch, and he came up to talk to us. And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go over and sit over here and eat my lunch." And he ends up going and sitting like somewhere by the river. But then I
Hmm.
could see him, and I was like, "Oh, he's not even pulling out like any food or anything like that."
No.
You and I, because Tina was eating, you and I started packing up my food, and I wasn't done. And I must have given you a look like we're going now, right?
Right.
And Tina got our vibe then, and so the three of us, like packed it up, and like being that I was like the last person in the group, like I kept looking back, like, like, all right, I don't see this guy, but who knew, like, if he like, could come around and pass, like you just know, like when you have like really weird vibes. So the one thing that I did pack, and this was more for, um, just like last ditch effort protection from, animals, was a knife, a very, very sharp hunting knife that is in a sheath that I actually like wore on a lanyard around my neck. And throughout like most of the trip up until that point, I had my knife tucked all the way into like in my inside of like my clothes, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
on the outside. But at that point in time, when that guy gave the creepy vibes, man, that knife freaking came out, and like I went into like freaking like my military mode, type of thing. And what was really freaky was then at some point in time when we had gotten into like a flat portion of the descent, you had to go and take care of things. So we had your pack, and the guy actually came down the trail, and he was like, "Oh, like, where's your third person, and at that point in time, Tina pulls out her phone, and she's like, "Oh shit, I have cell service." And she's like, "I'm gonna call Matt and let him know, like, we're almost down there, right?" And stuff. So she's like, "Oh, hey, babe, like, blah, 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 blah." Right? Totally didn't have cell service, right, on her
Right.
phone. And at that point in time, then I'm realizing, okay, like Tina's done this before. She's gotten a vibe. I'm getting a vibe from this guy. He's already noticing that, like, we don't have our third person.
I
So,
had my
like,
neck knife out also.
yep. And so at that point in time, I had my knife out on my chest and I had it out and I had my hands on the scabbard and I was like, you need to move on. You need to
Yeah.
move on. And just very, very assertively, like, and he's like, oh, you don't have to be like that. Move on. You
Yeah.
just need to move on. Like, have a great day, move on.
Yeah.
And that was it. The guy ended up moving on. We never saw him again until later on when we got to the bottom of the trail and we freaking saw him hanging out behind a tree with like some young girl who was in the water. And we went over to the girl and we were like, you need to get out of the water. This guy is like totally creeping on you. And we did go
Yeah.
and
He
find
was really weird.
yeah, we did find a park ranger and made them aware. We gave a description and everything. So, you know, we were fortunate where we did not have an incident, but like I think that's the downside, right? Of just anything you do, right? I mean, like, this could happen on a run that we do on a Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
It's just you have to have total heightened awareness. Do not live in like this little euphoric bubble.
And
Like just
trust your instincts. If
yes,
something feels off, it is off. Even if it isn't off, fuck them. It's your safety. If
that's
it
right.
feels off, it is off. Get yourself out of that situation.
Yep, yep. That's
100%.
but then we saw a wonderful group of older ladies. They were in their 70s and 80s. What the oldest lady was 85 years old. And as we were coming down, they were headed up to Holly Lake.
Yeah.
And then they must have hit the lake and then come back down because then we saw them again. And we were like, holy shit.
Yeah. Like they had to have been cruising,
Yeah,
85,
85.
cruising.
Yeah.
That's
So
what
I
I want
choose
to be
that.
when I'm 85.
Yes, I
I
totally
want
agree.
that.
I totally agree. And then, you know, we got to the end of the trail. I remember you and Tina, you know, taking off your boots and going into the lake. What was that? The string lake?
Yeah,
Um,
we're like we're looking at the lovely water. The boys weren't quite there yet. They were on their way and I'm like, let's soak our feet because that's going to feel amazing. So yeah, we walked in and soaked our legs in String Lake and that's where we saw the girl that was swimming while we were soaking and it was pretty good. Although I did notice it's the one and only time I lost a toenail was
yeah,
descending that day.
yeah.
I was wearing trail runners and not big heavy boots, which I don't regret. I just wish I had tied them tighter and kept on top of that during the descent because it just rubbed terribly and I lost my nail. Only time. Only
Yeah, I
time.
mean it does happen. It does happen. So overall, Lori, would you do the Teton Crest Trail again?
I actually would because the boys didn't get to go
I agree.
and I loved it. I loved every second of it. So if Maggie wanted to go or if Dave wanted to go, I
I'm
mean, I
with
don't
you.
think I would go on my own volition and drive it, but if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to do it, I'm on board.
Yeah, no, I'm totally and completely with you. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So so folks, you know, again, you know, I think being out in nature, as we talked about, you know, it's good for the mind, it's good for the soul, it's good for friendship. And you know,
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the time that I got to spend with you and Tina in the woods, and you know, having all of our laughs and you know, a couple of you know little scary moments here and there as well. But I think that that's what makes that even more of a sense of accomplishment, you know, for each of us individually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So next week, we will be talking about our recap of the Jekyll Island Marathon. So
I'm so ready to
I
go.
know we talked to Coach Q a couple weeks ago. So if you missed that episode, I think there was like 2 or 3 episodes ago. And we are going down to Jekyll Island, Georgia to run the marathon this coming Sunday. So, Lori, I'm really, really excited about it. And
Me too.
I just hope that our listeners go make mile 20 your bitch this week.
Peace out.